That's right. Only two guys have ever been the head coach at Florida State prior to this season since 1976. Of course, talking about Bobby Bowden, one of the more colorful personalities and one of the most successful coaches in the history of the game. 34 years, colossal amount of wins, also quite a few ACC championships and a couple of national titles. Of course, since 2010, it's been the Jimbo Fisher show, and he's won a national title and several ACC championships to stick in the trophy case. Now, of course, Fisher decided to take the big money at College Station, Texas, and coach the Aggies, leaving a big void to fill just for the third time over the last 42 seasons. So no pressure on Willie Taggart, right? Yeah, right. Just look at what Bowden and what Fisher have done in Tallahassee. Now, you might look at the overall record, and it's a losing one for Taggart and think, why would Florida State hire him? I think, first of all, Taggart teams have been known to show success compared to how the program was the year before he arrived. Like Oregon, the Ducks were 4-8. Last year, at least, they got to a bowl game and went 7-6. So there's an improvement there. And, of course, we saw Taggart have some success in South Florida and at Western Kentucky. The former state of Florida guy now gets to come back home and coach one of the big-time programs in all of the land. The Seminoles' less than spectacular 2017 can largely be attributed to injuries, but also to just lack of consistency on the offensive side. We saw the Seminoles amass the second worst offense in the ACC, only 351 yards per game. That's hard to believe that Florida State offense could be that inconsistent. But you have a couple of quarterbacks to pick from. 2 years ago, as a freshman, Deondre Francois was the guy, but we know what happened in the opener last year against Alabama. Serious injury to the knee, didn't play for the rest of the year. So James Blackman, a true freshman, got some big-time playing time and led the Seminoles for the remainder of the season. When you look at Francois' freshman stats from 2 years ago and Blackman's stats from last year, the stats really aren't that dissimilar from one another. But be prepared, Florida State, for a brand-new offense. Gone is Jimbo Fisher's pro-style attack. You're going to bring in an offensive system with new offensive coordinator out of Maryland and Walt Bell that will be up-tempo, that will be spread, and you will see shotgun quite a bit. That's right, shotgun formation for the quarterback. And here we are in mid-August still. We have not had a decision yet on who's going to be the starting QB. I'd probably say Francois will be as long as the knee is 100%. Keep in mind that Francois not only didn't play most of last year, but also, too, did not play in the spring game. Was still rehabilitating. The knee wasn't ready yet. So if it's 100%, I've got to think it's going to be the Deondre Francois show. But Jason Blackman has to be on alert. The ground game for Florida State, well, it's the best entering this year. Cam Akers, a major reason for that, as a freshman in 2017, broke the 1,000-yard barrier, 7 TDs, a little over 5 yards per carry. And even though Jacquez Patrick is known more as the power back, Patrick actually had slightly better yards per carry than that of Akers. Patrick was 5.6 per carry, and Akers was at 5.3. So you bring a couple of guys along with Amir Rasul. This Florida State running game, provided that the offensive line can do their part, it's going to make Florida State a dangerous offense. Receivers, you do lose Auden Tate to the NFL along with Ryan Izzo, the tight end. Still, though, you return the explosive Naquan Murray, 40 receptions, over 600 yards a year ago, and 4 TDs. But I'm really excited for Florida State about these freshmen that they have coming up. Remember this name, Tamorian Terry, a tall, physical target, can break tackles easily after catch. I think he's going to be a star. And then Deontay Sheffield, another one of those freshmen that will be a part of the rotation. Offensive line, though, had their big fair share of problems. We're talking about -6 turnover margin for the team, but in direct relation to the offensive line, only 35% on third down conversions, 13th worst team in the country in tackles for loss. They gave up too many, over 90, and 32 sacks is what they allowed, 94th in the country. So lots of work to be done with this Florida State offensive line, but it wasn't all bad. The center does return in Alec Ellerby, first team All-ACC last year, now entering his third season. Derek Kelly, another senior, he's at right guard. Big problem, though, for Florida State, the tackles. You lose Rick Leonard to the NFL, and the other tackle who they were expecting to have back, Josh Ball, Well, off-field issues doomed him. Dating violence was the reason why he was suspended from the team, and he's not listed on their overall roster. So now you have Abdul Bello, a junior, who'll have to step in. The defense in Tallahassee, well, it rose to the challenge. Third best in the ACC in total D, only 331 yards allowed per game. That's total yardage. That's good news. Not so good news, 6 of the top 7 tacklers have departed. So this will be a major rebuilding job for FSU. You bring in new coordinator in Harlan Barnett, who has Michigan State ties. And at least you'll have a couple of guys to work with on the defensive line. Yes, you don't have Josh Sweat anymore. He was picked in the draft. But DeMarcus Christmas does come back at a defensive tackle entering his senior year. This will be the 3rd straight year that he started, 36 stops a year ago. And Brian Burns, a junior, 48 tackles, 4.5 sacks, one heck of a defensive end. And we'll see how Marvin Wilson at another defensive tackle does. He was a former 5-star player. Linebackers, well, gone are Matthew Thomas as well as Jacob Pugh. But you do have the Kalen Brooks. Now, that's going to be a familiar name because his dad, one of the best players Florida State ever had on the defensive side in Derek Brooks. And we will see the Kalen play the star position. Dontavius Jackson, a junior, will play at one linebacker, and they'll have Adonis Thomas at the other linebacker. The secondary, yes, there are quite a few losses, including first-round draft pick in Derwin James, now a Los Angeles Charger. And you also lose Tavares McFadden at the corner. But Florida State played quite a few players in the secondary. This is an area, as far as recruiting, that Florida State under Jimbo Fisher did well. And keep in mind that Willie Taggart, one of his big strengths, is recruiting. So they'll continue to get fine defensive backs. They're set in this area, both present and future. Levonta Taylor is the only full-time starter back in the corner, had 2 picks. But a guy that played some last year, a sophomore now, but a freshman a year ago, Stanford Samuels, also had 2 picks on the other side. Safeties, Hamsam Nasiruddin, you get him. He played as a freshman last year and had 28 stops. Other safety, you had Cyrus Fagan, also a freshman from 2017. And a guy with plenty of leadership, A.J. Westbrook, second on the team in tacklers as far as leading returning tacklers. You'll have him playing safety part of the time. Kicker, shouldn't have to worry about place kicking. Might remember Roberto Aguayo, the legend for the Seminoles. Well, last year, his younger brother, that's Ricky, went 18 of 21 field goal kicking. But the punting last year, it was inconsistent. Now, I can't tell you who's going to have the easiest schedule in college football, but I can tell you it won't be Florida State. Several marquee games on it, including the opener, Labor Day night, September the 3rd, when Virginia Tech comes to Doak Campbell Stadium. Later in the month, got to go to Louisville, but the Cardinals are in massive rebuild mode, and that includes trying to replace their former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Lamar Jackson. But the next week, one of your toughest games of the season, at Miami. Last season, the Canes went into Tallahassee and pulled off the victory. Late October, the 3-time defending champions Clemson will be awaiting FSU. And notice that in mid-November, a matchup at Notre Dame. Like I said, several more key games on it. And you close out the season, of course, with your hated rivals from Gainesville, the Gators. Florida State's not going to win the ACC Atlantic. This division is Clemson's until proven otherwise, but I can't think of anybody else that Florida State is going to finish under. I mean, NC State and Louisville, lots of players to replace on defense. Can you think of anybody that will finish ahead of Florida State besides Clemson? Man, neither can I. So I'll take Florida State at second. That's my look at the Seminoles. See you next time.